Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rise Over Run. And this is continuing in our study about functions, modeling, and predicting change, because the only thing constant in life is change. So, yesterday we started off with learning about slope, and we learned about how we can read slope from a table, and we can also read slope in an equation. And when we talk about the word slope, we are talking about the steepness of a line. Okay? All right. And so what we learned yesterday, and when we're looking at the steepness of a line from a table, we have change in y over change in x. So that was one way that we could represent slope as the change in y over change in x. We also saw in slope from an equation down here that slope is represented as the m value in an equation. So if we had an equation of y equals 3x plus 6, here the 3 would be my slope, okay? So slope is the m value, slope is the change in y over change in x, and today we're going to see how slope is represented as rise over run, okay? Now, a lot of this was covered in the Mashup Math video yesterday, so this is really just designed to re-emphasize what was already seen and learned yesterday. So when you're looking at slope from a graph, you're going to choose 2 points on the line. And then when you count those 2 points, you're going to count the rise, then the run. Okay? And then you're going to write slope as a ratio, because that's what slope is. It is a ratio of rise over run. Okay? So let's look at a few examples of how we do this to reemphasize what was already seen yesterday. All right, so here's a graph, and off to the side of it, you see the table of values. So go ahead if you need to and pause the video and recreate this table of values in your notebook and graph the line. Okay, so going back to what we said on our sheet is that we are going to choose 2 points and then count the rise over run and write slope as the ratio of rise over run. So if I look here, I've got some points on this graph, and because slope is a constant rate of change for this line, I could really pick any 2 points that I want to. I'm going to pick these 2 points here, and I'm going to draw what we call the slope triangle. So if I look at my rise, I went up from 4 to 6, so that's a rise of 2. And then I went over from 1 to 2, so that is a run of 1. So when I go to find or to write the slope of this line using rise over run, my rise is 2, my run is 1, so therefore my slope for this line is 2. So the m value of an equation would equal 2. And because we've already said this, a linear function has a constant rate of change, that means from point to point, I could continue to go up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1, and that same ratio is going to be kept throughout this entire line. Okay? So that's what we call the slope staircase, and these other drawings are what we call the slope triangle. Okay? So let's move on to the next one. And go ahead, pause the video if you need to, recreate this table of values and the graph of the line in your notebook. All right, so continuing what we did on the last line, we're simply going to choose 2 points on the line and then count the rise over run. Now, if I notice, as I said yesterday, I always read my lines from left to right, okay? And so from left to right, this is a decreasing line, okay? So what we're going to do then is, once my stylus comes up, all right, so I'm going to construct my slope triangle from 1 point to the next point. All right, so I'm going to look at my rise over my run. So here I was at 3. So I went down 3, 2, 1, 0. So that's going to be what we call the negative rise. So we have a negative 3. And then I went from negative 2 to 0. So that's going to be 2. All right. So again, my rise over run is going to be a negative 3 over 2, which means in an equation, the m value would be negative 3 over 2. And again, if you notice that this is a constant rate of change from point to point on this line, so again, I could construct another slope triangle by going down 3 and over 2 again, and then down 3, down 3 and over 2 again. All right, so that's how I would find my slope or my rate of change of this line in this particular example. All right, so if we go to the next one, same thing, pause if you need to, and go ahead and recreate this in your notebook. All right, so what we'll do then is, again, look at how we have rise over run. So we could pick 2 points again and start by drawing our slope triangle. So I go up and over. So again, my rise here was I went up 2, 1, 2, and I have a run of 2. And again, this is going to be constant throughout the entire line. All right, so as you're doing your slopes, remember slope is a ratio, it's a fraction. So you would use your normal rules of fractions, so you would reduce when possible as well. All right, and one final example here. Again, we have another line from left to right that is decreasing, okay? So again, if I construct my slope triangle from point to point, this time I went down 4. And so now here I'm at 3, so 3, 2, 1, 0. I have a run of 3. Okay, so my rise over run is a negative 4/3. So again, my slope or my m value in an equation would be a negative 4/3. All right, so what I've got for you today is another maze you can do since we are having an amazing week in math. Get it? We had a maze yesterday and a maze today. So this is an amazing week in math. Okay, so here's your instructions for the maze. Graph the 2 points, then draw a line connecting them and compute the slope of the line using rise over run. So there's a few ways you can do this. Obviously, some of you will print this out and do it on paper, and that's fine to do. Others will make a separate copy on a separate sheet of paper and turn that in. That's fine as well. The other thing you could do is using Desmos, you could simply enter the 2 points in a table. And so if you remember how to do the table, you just have add item and you would select table. All right, so we would have 0, 4, and then 2 negative, 2, and -2. All right, so there's my line. All right, and again, I would just use rise over run to do this. So I rise and run to create a slope triangle. So I went up 2, 1, 2, and then I went over 2. So my rise over run is 2 over 2, which is going to equal 1. So my slope again is going to equal 1. All right. So if you do it this way, though, I need for you to screenshot these to a Google Doc so I can see that you actually did graph them and counted rise over run and see what you did. So you have those different options to complete the assignment. And then once you're done, there's this little learning activity right here you can do called Guess My Rule. Just click the link. It will take you to Desmos, and you can do Guess My Rule. It's just a simple, quick little functions activity. All right, so have a great day, everybody. And tomorrow we will learn more about how we can represent slope and find slope from 2 points on a line. So have a great day.